This week, Paul and I interviewed Joe Garcia, Global Corporate Solutions Engineer at CyberArk. In the news, Venmo caught publishing users' transactions, Facebook investigates yet another data firm, and when to purchase a solution to your cybersecurity problems. Stay tuned for all that and more on this episode of Application Security Weekly.
This is a Security Weekly production. Layered Insight is the industry's first embedded security approach for containers. Trusted by Global 1000 enterprises to secure their containerized applications, it's the only solution that requires no root privileges, has zero dependency on the underlying infrastructure, and is fully portable across any container environment. Unify DevOps and SecOps, enabling the rapid development of containerized applications without worrying about security. To learn more, please visit layeredinsight.com/ASW. Rapid7 powers the practice of SecOps. Using shared data, analytics, and automated workflows, SecOps unites IT, DevOps, and security teams to make security an outcome of innovation. Rapid7 combines technology, expertise, and advocacy to drive vulnerability management, application security, incident detection, and log management for more than 7,000 organizations worldwide. Power up your SecOps practice with a free trial at rapid7.com/securityweekly. Hard-coded credentials can be trouble, but not as much trouble as a vulnerable DevOps environment. If you want protection without the hassle of security slowing you down, CyberArk, the #1 provider in privilege access security, has the solution for you. With CyberArk Conjure, developers can easily secure secrets across any DevOps toolchain or platform, whether your application runs in the cloud or on premises. Eliminate the headaches of managing secrets and try Conjure open source for free with no strings attached. Visit conjure.org/ASW to get started today.
Welcome everyone to episode 25, our 26th episode of Application Security Weekly. I am, of course, your host, Keith Hoodlet, and I'm excited to be joined once again by my illustrious co-host, Paul Asadorian. Hey Paul, how's it going?
Hey Keith, how's it going? I'm doing really well. I'm using my Remarkable tablet, like literally the Remarkable. Still trying to figure out how that fits. I just like it for taking notes. During the show and for all the interviews and stuff. They by no means endorse us or the show in any way, shape, form, or fashion. We just happen to be nerds and pick up this technology. Keith has one as well.
That's right.
I'm digging it so far. I like it. So
the one thing I found about it, and I'm not going to go into this too much. I mean, here's my Remarkable tablet as well. But I found that I use it so much that I have to charge it on a pretty regular basis. That's the only downside, is that I just use it too much, which is not necessarily a bad thing. A couple of quick announcements before we actually jump into our interview with Joe. So we just released our 2018 listener survey. So please go to securityweekly.com/survey to help us continue to provide you with quality content that doesn't break the build. Also, come to the Pool Cabana at Black Hat and DEF CON, so that's Mandalay Bay and Caesars, to pick up a free copy of the Cyber Hero Adventures comic. And then you'll also be able to get a couple of comic books signed by Gary Berman himself, the author. So definitely check that out. Paul, I know that you're going to be out there all week with cast and crew, if I'm not mistaken, yeah?
Yeah, we'll actually have the most people from Security Weekly at Black Hat and DEF CON than ever before. In past shows have grown so much, I realize I need help for a lot of activities. So just to quickly break it down, for those of you who will be at Black Hat and or DEF CON, Black Hat will be in the pool area at Mandalay Bay, where we will be doing briefings with analyst briefings, essentially, where Security Weekly now plays the role of the analyst in our business today. So we'll be doing briefings in the pool area. I thought that was an appropriate place to do some briefings. We'll also be doing the trivia series of mini interviews, primarily Dougie Fresh, Doug White, Dr. Doug White. He's got a lot of nicknames, Dougie Nipples. He'll be there doing the trivia portion of all of those, that series of interviews, which are just free interviews that we do with community and industry alike. And it's fun hacker movie trivia. I'll probably come up with a new category for this year for trivia questions. We will also be on the Black Hat show floor doing some coverage there, which is probably a good opportunity to use my Remarkable tablet to take notes as I do ad hoc briefings and just kind of get a feel for what's happening in the industry side of things in the security world at Black Hat. And then at DEF CON, we will be in the pool area at Caesar's Palace. There, the mission is to record our regular shows, try and get as many segments recorded of our regular shows as possible. And then in the vendor area at DEF CON, we will be selling T-shirts, Security Weekly shot glasses, and computer glasses. They're kind of like knockoff Gunner glasses. And we'll have that stuff to give away at Black Hat to select individuals. And we'll also be the exclusive distributor of that comic book, which is awesome for raising awareness about and training for cybersecurity issues. Gary's told me some interesting things. The print quality is awesome, so if you're into comic books, you're definitely going to want to check one out. And there's all new storylines being built into this one. And one of the storylines, the hero is female and goes on to promote our industry and encourage STEM and things like that. So there's a lot of interesting things happening on the Security Weekly front. A lot of reasons. I mean, just came out and come say hi at the pool area, take a break from the show, and just come hang out with us. We're talking about launching Cigar Conversations at this year's show as well. I'll probably formalize that in the next couple of weeks, where I'll sit down with someone, we'll have a cigar together. They will ask me cigar questions, and I will ask them security questions, and we'll do all kinds of interesting pairings and such. So a lot happening for us at the upcoming Hacker Summer Camp.
That sounds like a lot of fun. In my case, I'm not sure whether or not I'm going to be making it out. I'm on the fence as to whether or not I want to just come out for just DEF CON that week, so the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and probably leave on Sunday. So still up in the air, kind of planning it out, thinking about finances and stuff, because I got another conference I want to go to in October, and so just trying to kind of make up my mind about that. But in the meantime, I do want to introduce our guest today, Joe Garcia from CyberArk. He is a global corporate solutions engineer, has a strong background in DevOps, cloud, and security, and is currently focused on helping customers implement and scale effective secrets management solutions. Just a little bit of his background. He has security operations administration focused on vulnerability and monitoring solutions at Raymond James Financial in his past, and has dealt with everything from data automation from the Qualys Cloud all the way down to producing comprehensive metrics in Tableau for the division. He is a CISSP and a certified AWS technical professional. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Keith. It's glad to be here, and glad I could make it to the show just in time before Black Hat. I'll be traveling out there too. Maybe I'll see you guys out there if you can make it, Keith. Paul will be there, though, I'm sure.
I will be there.
Oh yeah, you can't miss Paul. He's got a tactical fanny pack that he's going to be wearing, and he's pretty. You'll notice him when you see him.
It's a satchel, okay? It's a satchel. Indiana Jones carried a satchel, okay?
I'm sorry, I just had to mention.
No wrestlers will disagree with you on that, okay? I think they still carry them around to today, the fanny packs and stuff. But as long as it's tactical, I think that makes it okay for Black Hat's show floor at least.
I mean, it all really depends on if it's camouflage or not, or leather. I don't know which. But I did want to jump into a little bit about CyberArk Conjure. I know that Paul had an incident at one point with some of his Docker repositories and kind of spinning up malicious Docker containers as well, which doesn't necessarily tie directly into Conjure as secrets management. But for our listeners, what is secrets management, and why does anybody care, or why does anybody need it?
Well, the funny thing is that people do actually care about secrets management. I think the issue is how to actually approach it. We've got a lot of DevOps specific tools, that are out there that have their own sort of vaulting systems internal to these tools. But when it comes to the actual management portion, they don't talk to each other. So you'll have a pipeline with maybe 5 or 6 different tools in place. But if I'm talking to, for instance, Jenkins and credentials that I have stored there, which could get to be quite a bit, knowing Jenkins, and then I kind of flip over to Ansible Tower Vault and take a look there, they're not communicating with each other to keep these credentials in sync. This is really the biggest benefit that Conjure can provide to an entire environment, is centralizing the secrets as well as the auditing events surrounding those secrets, but allowing us to now add management to it on top of that. And we can start rotating these credentials without worries of breaking the pipeline, because we're treating secrets as a service at this point. So we're expecting these applications to come to us at the time that they need them, get whatever that value is for the secret, utilize it in its pipeline. And as long as we're rotating it on the back end, who cares, who has what? Because they're all coming to us as a service at the end of the day. And that's really the crux behind Conjur when it comes to secrets management.
So it's almost like a password vault or a password management solution for all of your secrets for service accounts, for cloud environments, your automated tools such as build tools or scanning tools. Is that maybe an accurate kind of comparison to like password management? But in this case, it does the auto rotation for you as well as, of course, passing these out as things make requests.
Well, yeah, absolutely. That's you're 110% correct. That's exactly what we're trying to solve here. But we built Conjur with a little different idea in place because we learned from the lessons of the past. And we knew going forward that, we could build something that was very developer focused, but at the end of the day, we're not just talking about developers here. We're talking about, sometimes executives or business owners. We're talking about security now that we need to bring into the fold. DevOps is developers and operations separately at one point, but we can marry them together. But if we're talking on an enterprise level, which we're really focused on and we really cater to the most, we also have to think about auditing and oversight. We can't just throw code at automation now and expect it just to do what it's doing blindly. We need to make sure that there's no malicious intent included in injecting or poisoning these different scripts that automation is running too. So we need to keep an active eye on what's going on. So it's not just a secrets management layer, it's also an auditing layer too that we're putting into place to make sure that we have complete visibility across the board from end to end of your pipeline.
So from an auditing perspective, what are some of the things that you take away from the metrics that you gather that you're able to then deduce that there's malicious behavior? Like what sort of things are you performing? Is it like scanning of the container images? Is it auditing of an AMI? Like what sort of functionality or features exist to allow you to do that auditing?
Yeah, so we're more concerned about the privileged access than we are from a container perspective, where we're taking a hash of the container and then checking back in to make sure that the hash hasn't changed. I think that some of our alliance members like Twistlock and Aqua Security, they do something like that from a containers perspective.
I just want to throw.
We're more concerned.
I want to selfishly throw Layered Insight into that mix because they sponsor the show.
Oh, my bad.
No worries.
You think I would have got that? They were your first ad. You think I would have caught off to that? But
they were. But
yeah,
you're right. The
container
security is about analyzing the container, but also managing the security of your containers. And what I understand Conjur does is help me with my secrets management problem, which is separate from that, which is, I find it interesting, Joe and Keith in our audience, right? When we talk about application security, as we've done for all of these episodes, this is episode 25, we talk about the major issues, right? Securing the SDLC, securing your open source libraries and all these other major problems, scanning somehow your applications in various ways. The problem that I think a lot of organizations are overlooking is managing your secrets from your app. We have an internal application that we wrote locally, and we have this problem big time, right? And it's with API keys. And it's how do you manage and protect your API keys when you're in a full agile and DevOps style environment? That gets extremely challenging if you don't have some or implementing some kind of vault.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, it all boils down to just keeping everything centrally managed and centrally audited. It becomes a difficulty when you have, possibly up to 10 different applications within your pipeline, and you're just trying to push out one product. Yet, in order to detect a compromise, you need to look at 10 different logs in order to figure that out. It just doesn't make sense to me if I'm following a DevOps methodology, right? So if I understand the DevOps methodology completely, it's to make things faster, simpler, scalable, things like that. And Conjur kind of fits into all of those modes because we're the one-stop shop to figure all that information out, and we can combine it all together, send it off to a SIEM if that's your flavor of choice, or we can contain it within our own container, and you can utilize the reporting functionality out of there. So there's a lot of different angles that we can play in order to make sure that you guys got visibility into what's going on from an automation standpoint, because it's definitely time consuming to do it to each of the individual tools that you may have scattered across your pipeline.
Well, and Joe's right. It can get to be messy very fast. And anytime you're dealing with credentials, when you talk about having a mess, it can be a very risky mess, right? And what ends up happening is, as we see from a lot of the news headlines, is your key to something, in most cases, is in your public repository or in some kind of backup, or ends up exposed somehow to an attacker. And I think you can greatly limit that by, as Joe is saying, centralizing all of your secrets. And it gives you that level of protection, right? I mean, still, your application has to use it in some capacity. So there are some vulnerabilities along the chain, but by managing those, you can gain visibility into where some of those credentials might be abused.
So I had a follow-up question as well. So if I'm a developer and I want to make use of this, vault for all of my secrets needs, am I calling it via an API, or how am I authenticated to make requests of Conjure in the first place as a developer? And then once I'm authenticated, how would I actually make use of it in my code?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, that's a great question, and it's obviously so it's a question that there's a lot of different answers to depending on the persona that we're talking about, because we did, develop it with 4 different of those personas in mind. But we definitely took the developer side of things and made sure that we didn't disrupt their workflow at all. So there are client libraries available that wrap our API for most of the popular languages that are out there, but they would be accessing it through an API for the most part. We do provide a command line interface for the operations type people who love to sit at their terminal, and we also have a user interface as well. But the developers tend to stick with the API and those client libraries. And we deal with a lot of different authentication types. So it honestly depends on what you have working in your environment. One of my favorites is to utilize our Authenticator for Kubernetes, since container orchestration seems to be the way that things are going, especially Kubernetes. And we've developed an Authenticator that can strictly use attributes. So there's no initial bearer token. There's no secret zero. We're not passing API keys around. We're actually using the Kubernetes API in order to verify that what we're seeing come in is actually true from the security admin's perspective. So it's very powerful to keep those secrets from floating around your environment while still keeping the security in place that you would expect from a company like CyberArk, where we're not really divulging the entire world to what it is that you're trying to protect.
So, Joe, how does, if you're deploying new containers, how do you use the authentication scheme to, let's say, authenticate something to the registry, right? Because, I mean, in the process, when you want to spin up a new container, you're going to need access to the registry either to push something in or pull something out. So how does that authentication work?
Yeah, so typically we're talking about more automated identities, which Conjure was really built to deal with. Mm-hmm. And we actually consider it a concept of machine identity, where we're taking anything that's non-human. We're not classifying it as an application or as this or that. We're just saying a machine. Anything that's not human, we can grant an identity to with a role-based access approach to it, and allow them to then obtain an identity that we trust. Once they have that identity, from there, they can call into us as much as they want. And as long as they're authorized within Conjure to access the secrets, we'll go ahead and hand them back. Now, the delivery, I think, is the part of the question that you're really asking about. And we've got open source utilities out there, one of which is called Summon, that you can find on GitHub. And that will actually, I call Summon a hugger a little bit. It's a process that likes to wrap and hug another sub-process. So let's say I was trying to run a JavaScript, or Docker, for example, would be another one, which is exactly what you're talking about, right? Docker login would be that command. I can use Summon in order to pull, using the identity that I've established on my host, the secrets back and inject them into that sub-process as an environment variable. So we're still sticking to what developers are working towards. They're trying to use their secrets in environment variables. whether you're bringing it in from a manifest or another secret store, we're trying to keep that same workflow in place. So they would, at the end of the day, just be using those environment variables, but we would still have the auditing and insight from a Conjure perspective and a security perspective to be able to answer any questions that were asked about that access and that authorization.
And as we move to more serverless technologies, is Conjure still something that folks are using? And are you running into like competition with whoever your serverless provider is, like Amazon? Like, don't they have their own kind of store? Like, what are the advantages to having it internally?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, Amazon just introduced their secrets manager, which, initially when I was reading through the articles and stuff, I thought, well, great for AWS only users. Like, what about everybody else and other cloud services? But it seems like they kind of built it in a way to where it could extend there. It's just not quite there yet. They just announced it. Conjure comes provided as it's cloud agnostic. It doesn't care what cloud you're in. All that Conjure wants to do is be able to talk back to its master in its cluster, and it's a happy camper. That master could live on-prem, in a cloud, whatever. It just needs the service exposed for it to be able to communicate with its little worker bees that are out and about serving the secrets to applications.
So it's better to have to set up Conjure and have that central repository, one central repository that you manage. Even though there's risk in keeping all of your secrets in one central repository, there's also huge benefits to that. And Keith and I were just talking, I think, last week about your source code being in the same boat. Like, you want to have one source code repository, you want to have one secrets manager. And even though it can be kind of the perspective of it might be more insecure to have everything all in one place, on the flip side of that, having everything in one place means you secure one thing, you monitor one thing, and security-wise, you're in a better position by centrally managing your secrets or your source code repository.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so at the crux of everything, we utilize security policy as code. And even further, it's YAML formatted. So it's easily readable by machines and humans. But even further to that point, we keep all of the secret values, even the map to the keys of the kingdom, out of that policy. So we can check it into GitHub publicly and call it a day and not have any worries about exposing our secrets. And this is really what should be replacing what you were talking about earlier, where people are accidentally putting plain text keys and things into GitHub repositories. They should be replacing that with our policy as code, which can go in there and just give you the namespace in Conjure that it's located. And we can start to clean things up that way. Conjure itself even does this and makes it publicly available so that anybody can see an example of what we're utilizing internally, because there's no fear from our part. There's no secrets in there. We're just establishing those namespaces and nothing else.
And that, I think this is kind of akin to encryption, right? Where, sure, you could try and write your own encryption algorithm, but it's way better to use an already established framework or an already established and tested method. Because I see developers today, they're storing secrets in config files, they're storing secrets in the database, and there's a lot more code at the end of the day that you're going to have to write to try and manage all those secrets. Whereas if you just store them centrally, that code's already written for you. You're just calling it in a wrapper, like you're saying, Joe. I think that's a huge use case to your developers to say, you get to write less code. I mean, despite what you think about developers and sysadmins, we really don't like to type. Like, we're really lazy about typing. The less we have to type, the better.
Yeah, absolutely correct. And I mean, I just had a bunch of talks. We just got back from our security conference with CyberArk in Boston this past week, and I had a lot of great talks with a lot of our customers. And some of them are, pretty embedded with Pivotal, and they're deploying applications out to Cloud Foundry. And I'm like, look, you can use our Authenticator, and we try to cater to the developer's workflow. They're already using plain text secrets in their manifest files. Let's just move that out into what someone can read. Take away the hard-coded part of it, replace it with where to find it in Conjure, and now your developers really didn't do anything but kind of separate a file into two, and we've secured what they're doing behind Conjure. It's a pretty simple thing to do, and I think that if you approached a developer with that in mind, like with that, few tasks in mind, I don't see why they would ever balk at the idea of getting a little bit of security around their stuff, especially if it makes it easier for them at the end of the day.
And what's really nice about this, from everything I can see here out on GitHub, is that there's actually an open source repo for Conjur for people to go and try it out. Can you talk a little bit about that at all, in terms of like how it works, or maybe what limitations are between this and those companies that eventually want to go and purchase licensing to Conjur?
Sure, yeah. So we are available on GitHub, but I would have to say after today, the easiest way of getting your hands on our Conjur open source is with the announcement of the Google Cloud Marketplace. We are one of the first security companies to be introduced into the Google Cloud Marketplace, and now we're just a one-click deploy away to being deployed into your Google Kubernetes engine on the Google Cloud Platform. So this is huge, and we even allow you the ability to bring in a remote Postgres database. So if you wanted to bring secrets from an on-prem open source version of Conjur into Kubernetes, you can just connect it back with that. But either way that you go, you're going to get all of the benefits of our Conjur Enterprise Edition, with the exception of our LDAP integration, our user interface, as well as rotation of our secrets. So other than those three things, well, support as well, typical enterprise stuff there. But, other than those four things, I should say, you're getting everything that you need to be able to create your own Conjur cluster today. It would just take a little load balancing from your part. And if you're using Google Cloud Platform and GKE already, that has a built-in load balancer you can work with. So you're off to the races.
Got it. And the rotation part is the thing, to my mind, the thing that's most important, right? Like, so that's all the more reason for companies to consider buying it. But at the very least, if there's a concern with that today, a developer can go out, try it, prove that it works, and say, look, now we can add password rotation, security team. Do you want us to add password rotation for all of our secrets that we're using for all of our cloud infrastructure? The answer will always be yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even if they're a current CyberArk customer and they're just hearing about Conjur today, we have a synchronizer that can bring our secrets from our enterprise password vault into Conjur, and we can utilize the past 15 years of rotators that we've created for our enterprise password vault to rotate credentials and then synchronize them down to Conjur. So, we may only have, around 10 of those rotators in Conjur today, but if you're a current CyberArk customer, that increases to over 150 very quickly.
Awesome. So what else is CyberArk up to these days? It sounds like you have some new integrations and some new things that you guys are actually working on as well, beyond Conjur, obviously.
Before we get to that, I just have I had one last question on the operations side. When it comes to implementing Conjur, Joe, do you find that the operations team is implementing it? Is it the dev team? Is it a collaborative effort? Like, where does that fall in the organization today?
Oh, this is a fun answer. Okay, so man, I wish there was a normal answer for you too. We actually see it a little differently. What we're finding is that the security teams are approaching us as they're nearing going to prod with a lot of this stuff. So the security teams will approach us, but it seems to me at the end of the day that the development teams and those DevOps teams, it's kind of half and half developers and then actually established DevOps that are having the final say on what is purchased. From a security perspective, which is mind-blowing to me coming from InfoSec and a SOC team, I was so used to being that person that was the decision maker at the end of the day as to where we went. So it kind of, I'm glad that wall between developers and operations has split and, they're together on one side, but I feel like we just created a new wall between DevOps and security. And that's kind of where we're at today. We need to figure out how to break down this wall and then have everybody just collaborate together. And that's really what Conjur is trying to establish here with the idea of our personas as well as the idea around our security policy as code. We're trying to bring collaboration in where developers can send to security what it is they hope their authorizations are, maybe in like a PR request or something like that. Security can review it and then kind of make what they say. And we can start acting like a team instead of trying to act like we're against each other, which we're absolutely not. Yeah, especially, at least from the security side of the fence. I haven't been on the DevOps side of the fence quite yet, but I can imagine that the sentiment is the same there as well.
Yeah, I can see security come up with more use cases for Conjur, right, in different points. And I think it exists in code, but also in that blending of the development and operations in DevOps, right? I can see teams using it for the operational aspect as well. How do I gain access to our AWS or Google Cloud, and how do I rotate those keys, and how do I, you mentioned Ansible before. I mean, that's a huge use case for some kind of centralized vault.
Yeah, and I think Ansible is the worst offender of privileged credentials, or at least keys, right?
Big time.
That's out there from a DevOps perspective. Probably second to, I would imagine, Jenkins, because Jenkins needs everything from end to end, from build and test all the way down to deploy or deliver, right? And that's a lot of secrets that we need to treat this automation like our human users of the past. We used to segregate departments, segregate duties, yet now we're just like, yeah, just give them all the secrets. And it's like, hold on a sec. When did we start not segregating duties, even though it's automation? I get that. I think people are missing the point here.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great insight. Sorry, Keith, back to you.
All right. No, it's okay. Actually, I was going to say, unless you had any additional questions, I'm ready for the Application Security Weekly 5 questions if you are.
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. All right, Joe, first and foremost, what were the specs like on your first computer?
You hear me laughing hard, so it wasn't very good. Oh, man. My first computer was actually my aunt's computer, and it was a compact, i386 or something like. Unfortunately, I don't have the tenure of some people coming on here with, like, I had the Commodore and stuff like that. But yeah, it was a compact 386 was my first computer that I learned Visual Basic 4 on. So that was a good time.
Oh man, you already skipped to the next question, which is what was the programming language that you learned first? So no, it's good.
That was like a developer making efficient code, right? He answered 2 questions in one. That was super efficient. Exactly. That was awesome.
So let me ask this then: what do you enjoy writing in today? If you still do any coding at all in your free time?
Oh man, had you asked me about 6 months ago, before I joined, really got involved with Conjure and DevOps and stuff like that, I would have said PowerShell right off the bat. I mean, I even went as far as trying to write PowerShell PowerShell core with Linux SQL container, something crazy like that. Today, I would have to say that my favorite is Python. It's just so extensible, and there's so many modules out there that I can do things so easily for. Plus, I mean, everybody's got Ansible or something that runs in Python today, so I found that it converts really easily to trying to fix a lot of the problems I find in tools today as well.
So then this next question will be especially relevant. Tabs or spaces?
Oh my gosh, I'm having flashbacks to Silicon Valley right now when he broke up with his girlfriend. So I am definitely a spaces guy. I was a tabs guy, and then I realized that I am switching from bash to YAML to all these different things so much. I just like the control of spaces so that I can, double space if it's YAML, space 4 times if it's bash. I'm a control freak when it comes to that, I guess you could say.
Well, so it's funny because I'm the same way.
Yeah, I think you're a tabs person until tabs really burn you. And I got burned really early on in my career as a sysadmin when I realized that older versions of Solaris treat the tab totally differently and munch the config file. And ever since then, I was like, screw tabs. This is horrible. I just spent 6 hours of my life debugging something because I use a tab and not spaces, right?
I think a better question would be, are you a semicolons guy or no semicolons guy? Because the PHP semicolons used to burn me all the time, like back in the earlier versions where they wouldn't even give you any information as to what happened. And I would spend hours trying to find, the lone missing semicolon. So that's actually my most hated out of all of the languages.
At some point I have to add that, and then the other question will be brace inline or on the next line, like on its own new line. That'll be another one entirely, but we won't go there today.
So many arguments over that too. Oh my gosh, yeah, that's a good one.
So then my next question though is actually a holy war: Vim or Emacs?
Okay, so everybody at my job is going to kill me, but I am totally Vim. I've tried Emacs, and I just can't grok it. I can't. I don't have enough time to sit there and try to learn everything. But I will tell you, the presentations that I've seen in Emacs is mind-blowing, and I wish I knew it. So I'll give them that.
You're in good company. It's fine. We're both Vim users here, awesome. So you're fine.
So
last question. What topic or who would you nominate that we bring on the show to interview on a future episode?
Oh, that's a great question. I love Rachel Toback. I love her at DEF CON every year in the social engineering village. I think last year she basically like owned Sony's knock, and it was just the greatest thing I've ever witnessed. It was my first DEF CON, my first time seeing any social engineering live. And I think that the hardest part of the social engineering village isn't so much compromising the companies that you're set up for, but trying to keep quiet because you're laughing so hard because you can't believe that they got this far with this company and stuff. And so her, I don't know if she's ever been on before or on this show, but like just in general, out of all of the shows that I watch, it would definitely be her. As far as this specific show, though, man, oh gosh, I know that Kosuke with Jenkins and CloudBees was the one who created the credential plugin for Jenkins, and it's also the crux to their security for CloudBees. So I would love to hear how about him developing that credential plugin and how it became the centerpiece to all of their security there at CloudBees, and what his initial thoughts were when creating it and how it kind of evolved to what it is today. I think that would be an interesting interview.
Awesome. Well, with that, Joe, thank you so much for appearing on Application Security Weekly. We will come back with the news in just a moment.